yourself?
I just got back. I was just in Niagara Falls and Montreal and Perth and Ottawa. I miss Canadians a lot. They're so, you say that I'm coarse and it's from New York, but Canadians swear like hell. And they're down for a fight. They're always like, they're very polite, but if you spill their pint, they're going to brawl. They're just a very sort of, I know they're seen as sort of polite and quiet, but I find them to be a very gregarious folk. They want to go out and do stuff. They want to cannonball off the dock into the lake.
Have you ever seen that? There was a short skit that runs for a couple minutes about these Ontario or Prairie hockey boys, and one of the girls brings her boyfriend over, and he's sort of this city slicker, and they just pummel the snot out of him. You seen it? This comedic skit?
No, I don't think I have.
I'll have to send it to you. It's very good.
But that's Canada in a nutshell. It's a fun place to go, and people are interesting there. And by the way, speaking of diversity, it worked for the most part. Now, they used Indians who were coming from a British Commonwealth, just like Canada, and they used Sikhs, who are basically Indians. But outside of a looming Muslim problem, as we just saw with the shooting on Danforth in Toronto, it's actually gone pretty good.
What do you think is the difference to that? So, like, Australia has, I don't know if you know the numbers, but obviously I'm over here. A quarter of the population wasn't born here. And we've got substantial communities of, like, Lebanese, Chinese.
Lebanese are great. They assimilate well.
Yeah, you're right. Well, the big thing, because they came over from the Civil War, so we've got about 50-50 between Muslim Lebanese and Christian Lebanese, and they've settled down. And we've got the second highest population of Greeks, I think, outside of Greece.
Greeks are cool.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, by the way, people are only good in bed if they're near the Mediterranean? Now, this is,
no,
Gavin.
Because I've been there before, but other than that, that's very.
No, you need, like, women in Toronto are terrible in bed because there's no link to the Mediterranean. Women in Ottawa are good in bed because they're mostly French, and the French are linked to the Mediterranean in that the south of France is on the Mediterranean. So it can be very tangential. It can be 6 degrees of separation, but if there's no link to the Mediterranean whatsoever, don't go to bed with her. It's going to be really boring.
This is an interesting talking point that I'll ask you about that I've never heard you comment on because it's never really come up. But being both Canadians, what do you reckon about French nationalism within the country and the separatist movement?
I hated it when I was there, and I was an Anglophone who spoke French with a thick English accent. I hated the policing of it. And they literally have language police who go around with Polaroid cameras photographing your store. But now that I'm not there anymore, I look back in retrospect and go, nice work, guys. I mean, you have the same accent you had 400 years ago. That sounds like I'm criticizing them, but it's actually impressive. And there's parts of Queens here in New York that, like Astoria or Flushing is China. Like, there's no English signs. Everyone's speaking Chinese on the streets. You honestly don't know that you're not in Beijing when you're in Flushing. And there's parts of South Brooklyn that are completely Russian. Russian signs, everyone speaking Russian. You don't need to speak a lick of English to be there. And those are basically fifth columns that exist here in New York. And Quebec, you can't do that. Everyone has to speak French. Everyone has to appreciate French culture. And all signs have to be in French. And it sucks when you're not French and you live there, and it's probably a big part of why I left. But in retrospect, it's pretty impressive.
Interesting.
Same with the Amish and the Hasidic Jews, by the way. The fact that Hasidic Jews can live in New York City, totally surrounded by this hedonism and drugs and corruption and violence, and still maintain this hundreds of years old culture is nuts. Maybe it's not 100 years. What is it, 1850s, I guess? I don't know.
I have no idea the origins of Hasidic Jews.
It's just amazing that they can retain that culture. I think we could take a lesson from both of those groups.
Yeah, with that pressure on the outside.